At the KSMO studios, we welcome you to Wednesday, August 30th. It's Hump Day. Amy Glenn has made her way in from the Dent County Extension. Hello, girl.
Good morning. How are we?
Fine. I haven't seen you since the Expo.
I know.
Been busy, though. I know
It
that.
has been busy.
But wanted to welcome Amy in, and of course, Expo. Let's just jump right onto the Expo because very good Expo again this year.
It was
you
good.
know, and we're getting more the submissions from the 4-H kids and stuff. When COVID hit, that just kind of all just nothing.
And that was right before we moved here.
Right.
So I don't know what it was. I have nothing to compare it to
Yeah.
except for last year.
Right.
And it was good to hear people come in and say, "Oh my gosh, this building is about full."
Yeah, that was nice.
And we had some amazing exhibits, the quilts and the woodworking, and I mean, these kids just really outdid themselves this year. So I'm really looking forward to next year to see what's going to happen in there. And, I just love seeing those exhibits coming in.
I do,
and
too.
When people think of the expo, they think of the animals.
Sure.
Which is a huge part of it. But, we want to remember those kids that have the exhibits in the building. They put a lot of work into it.
You bet they do.
And it was great to see the building filling up this year.
So creative some of these kids are
Yes.
in their ideas, and I don't even know where they get the ideas from.
There was one of the welding projects that made it to State Fair that, you look at it and you say, oh my gosh, where did you get that idea? It was a bug.
Mm-hmm.
It was probably about 2.5 feet tall, and just made out of a shovel head and bike chain and bolts and
Kind of
all
whatever
kinds
you
of
could
stuff.
find,
Whatever
right?
you
That could be
find.
welded.
Very creative.
And it was, and it's been a few years, I think about 10 years ago, that actually somebody had made an outside bench out of gears and welded them together. And I'm thinking, well, first off, you'd think that's not going to be very comfortable, but it really was.
Yeah.
You had to sit down on it, and I thought, wow, now where would you get that idea to
It's
try
amazing.
and want to do that? And then the time and the
know-how.
and then to make sure it's level,
Right.
and all that's had to take a lot of work. And we're talking about kids doing this. We're not talking about adults doing it.
Right.
We're talking about kids taking on a challenge. And I think that's the biggest part of what I like to see with a lot of these 4-H kids is they take on the challenge. And really, that's what 4-H is really all about.
Right.
Challenging yourself. And a lot of these kids have really stepped forward with it. And I know we just kind of, before we came on, reminding everybody October will be 4-H month.
Right.
So if you've got some youngins that are interested in 4-H for the first time and you're not sure about it, you can always call Amy. She can guide you through that process. There's an online registration, but it's well worth the time. And we've got some incredible 4-H people around here that do outstanding work.
Yes.
It's amazing and how long they've been doing it, and it's fantastic.
But we do have some changes coming up.
Well, I
for
know
next
always
year,
going to have
so,
changes,
yeah.
but what I'm saying is that it seems like even with the changes, though, the people that replace them or come in have been former 4-Hers themselves.
Right.
And have seen the process, and it's just amazing how it continues to just thrive here in Dane County.
Yes. So speaking of the clubs, we do have 4 clubs here in Dent County, and Green Forest was our very dedicated Sharon Schaefer. I think she was a club leader for, oh my gosh,
She's been a club leader since I think I've been here. That's 40 years.
I want to say it's
Yeah.
right at 40 years. This
Yeah.
may be her 40th year. So she will be. I don't know that she'll.
I can't see her retiring.
I don't think she'll ever
Slowing
get out
down?
of 4-H, but slowing down. She's turning the reins over as club leader to Amy Garrison.
Okay.
Amy and her husband Heath, they have kids that have been in 4-H at Green Forest, so they're kind of stepping in and taking over the club there. Then the other change, actually this change took place last year, Spring Creek. It was Nancy Major and Ashley Cunningham, our local veterinarian. She has taken that club over. And her husband is doing our livestock judging team. So we've got some not new faces, but new roles coming up next year.
Okay,
So
very good.
Angela Black is still going to be with West Side,
Okay.
and I think she's been here for several years.
It's been quite a few years, yeah.
And then Lake Spring, which is up toward the Rolla area, is Jessica Radford and Crystal Sims.
Okay.
So those are our new club leaders for this coming year. We have our enrollment coming up October 1st. Our online
That
system,
sounds like a long way away, but it's not.
It's right around
It's
the
just
corner.
a little over a month.
Yes. Our online program that we use, which is 4-H Online, that's going to shut down September 15th.
Right.
So if you're thinking about enrolling, please don't do anything until after October 1st, because
Sure.
if you go in now, you'll pay now.
For
And
this
then
year.
you'll have to re-enroll come October 1st, and you'll pay again.
Yeah.
So please don't go in and enroll. We're always welcoming our volunteers, because those are where our project leaders come
Sure.
from. So those are a huge component of our program. Without our project leaders and our volunteers, we can't do a whole lot.
No. And if
So-
somebody has a unique skill that you think maybe some 4-Hers might want to learn, like maybe you make violins or something of that nature. I'm just
Right.
throwing that out there. I know that one year we had a gentleman out of West Plains that actually did help show kids how to do that kind of woodwork.
Right.
Make violins and mandolins and things of that nature. I thought,
Yes.
what a unique craft
Yes.
that would be to
And there's
see.
so much of the things that our parents and grandparents used to do that have fallen off to the wayside. And it was nice to see that at the at the expo. Some of the exhibits. That's your new word.
Well,
for
that
the
was
day,
a good
exhibit.
word to combine those two, exhibit. We'll use that one next year.
There you go. But it was good to see some of the the cured meats. We had several quilts. The hand quilting that was done on those, I mean, you just don't see that anymore. The food preservation and the woodworking, it was just good to see those things. And, some people may not think that's a skill that, I started to say the older people, that would include myself.
Myself, too.
But, some of the things that we do on a daily basis, we don't think about passing that on or teaching some of the younger kids, and it's something that we do need.
Amy, and this is why sometimes I teach real life skills. That's really part of what 4-H is all about.
Right.
And what I mean by real life skills, when you talk about food preservation, okay, if you can grow your own vegetables and you can preserve them, you're not going to go hungry.
That's right.
If all of a sudden every truck couldn't get to the supermarket and you don't know how to do anything, you're going to get really hungry real fast. You're going to learn how to eat leaves and grass and things of that nature, things you probably don't even know what you're eating. Probably not a good idea.
Right.
But if you know how to, make pickles, you can do that. Your cucumbers, maybe you have some peppers and tomatoes you want to store. Maybe make your own tomato sauce. You can learn how to do a number of different things on your own, and that way you have a way of keeping going should something major happen.
Right. And
Electricity
we don't
goes out,
know.
you can't cook anything, but you have prepared foods that you've already stored.
Yep.
So, you're right. I think a lot of people forget about that. It's I don't want to say a lost art. Sometimes I think it's just an ignored art because we have so much convenience at our hands.
Right.
We have, I'm not trying to slide anybody, but you got people like Fillmore, you can drive right through, tell them you need this, 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 and this, and they get it to you, and bang, you're gone. It's
And
great.
you're
It's
gone,
wonderful.
yeah.
It's fantastic. But what if you're trapped? Maybe at home after we had a derecho one time, there were people working at their house, had no electric, no water, no anything. What are you going to do?
Right. Right.
Yeah.
And one of the club leaders, we had a pool party for the clubs here in town, and for families to come out and talk to the club leaders, thinking about joining, and it was just an opportunity at a relaxed setting
Sure.
where they could come out and talk to people. And one of the club leaders and I, we were sitting there talking, and I was born and raised in Florida, and my mother owned her own flower shop, so she worked all the time. My dad worked all the time. Now, I didn't have the pleasure of knowing her mother, because she passed away when my mother was young. So I don't know if the canning and preserving and all of that, but I was not raised. I didn't learn how to do those things because my mother worked all the time, and I'm not blaming her, but we move up here, and one of the club leaders said people are moving here for the homesteading and the homeschooling. Now, homeschooling, that's a whole new conversation. We won't go there. I'm beginning to change my mind a little bit on my opinion of homeschooling. But anyway, the homesteading part of it, I am just so intrigued. I'm learning the herbs and things that are on our property out in the woods that we can live on and we can use to take care of ourselves. And it really makes me mad. It really makes me mad that at this age, I wish I had learned that so many years ago, because this world has gotten crazy.
Oh, yeah.
And we don't know what's ahead. And, just to have that knowledge, like you said, if something happens, we have what we need right here. And, we gardened when we were in Florida, but not like we do here. And we sat down for supper one night, and we looked down, and everything on our plate came off of our property.
Yeah.
And we're like, that's an amazing feeling.
It is.
And to be able to pass that on and to our younger generation, and for them to pick it up and learn it and live with it, and then one day pass it on to their kids. To me, that's what it's all about. When I was an ag teacher in Florida, I started off in Florida. They can have ag and FFA at the middle school level.
Okay.
So we're talking 6th grade and up. And those middle school kids, they were like sponges. They just asked so many and good questions, not just weird questions. They did ask some weird questions, but they were, they were truly interested and wanted to learn. And I told somebody one time, if I can reach one student and teach them how to read the back of a seed packet and understand it and know what to do with it and understand they don't need acres and acres. You could take a little spot in your flower bed.
Sure.
And grow enough vegetables for your family. And if I can teach them that, then my job is done. That's something that they will have with them. And, you could sit there and read a book to a kid all day long. But until they have that seed packet in their hand and that seed in between their fingers and digging a hole in the dirt, that's when they get it. And that, to me, is priceless.
Then when they have to weed it.
Yes.
That was always our job. Dad made us plant it, and then he goes, what do you think, guys? Great. You're thinking, okay, how long is it going to take? Well, it's going to take a little while. And then as it comes up, got the weeds growing up in between the tomatoes and the lettuce and the carrots and things. So you guys got to get out there and weed that. Seriously. It's not up yet. It's not done. But one of the things, and we talk about these type of historical ways, and I say historical, because they are all from history, and they're usually based upon generations and generations of trial and error.
Right.
I know my grandmother used to make pickles, and she knew I loved pickles, so I'd always have at least 5 jars of pickles every time we got up there. And I wouldn't eat all 5 jars of pickles, but I'd definitely take 3 home. I loved her pickles, and she would make big jars, 10-gallon jars.
Oh, wow.
She'd get big jars and get those things set in those jars. Now, and people say, well, what's a 10-gallon jar? It's 3 feet high. Mm-hmm. And there's no way that lady at 80 years old could carry that up and down stairs.
Right.
So I'm wondering, how did they ever get it up and down the steps? Well, Grandpa had a two-wheeler that he used to take it down the steps. Grandma would hold it in the front. He'd take it down the back after they filled it. Now, I cannot imagine how heavy that had to be. But those kind of things, you remember that kind of stuff.
Right.
She always had her shelf stocked every winter. Tomatoes, cucumbers, peppers, all kinds of things that she would can.
Yeah.
And I watched her do it a couple of times, and she had her pressure cooker and everything, and she knew how to do it. She knew just what spices to add, what not to add, how to do it, how
They
long
didn't
it
need a
took.
recipe.
You know, yeah, well, I don't think she had a recipe for anything. It was a pinch of this and a dash of that.
Yeah. And you know what amazes me is we are very fortunate because we have a way to research. I mean, you can Google, you can get on YouTube, you can get on Pinterest and Facebook. There's all kind of groups that you can join to learn how to do this stuff. But way back when, just like the pokeweed, I mean, there's a I mean, you can eat the berries, but
You bet.
the seeds are toxic. How did they discover that?
Somebody
How
did.
did, at what point did
Yeah.
they say, and, back in the 1800s, it's not like you had a neighbor right there. So how did word travel that, don't eat this, or you can eat this part but not this part because so-and-so got sick, and they had to narrow it down. And it
Sure.
just amazes me. And we have them to thank for the knowledge that we have today, and we just need to keep it going.
Well,
So,
and you remember probably Yule Gibbons, many parts of these plants are edible, right?
That's right.
Yeah,
That's
and he
right.
died of eating a poison plant. So even though you may think that plant, some plants get a little bit, over time,
Right.
they adapt. And so they don't look like what they used to 20, 30 years
That's
ago.
right.
So
That's
you
right.
definitely have to always kind of keep that in mind, because some berries, you can only eat them when they're ripe. If you eat them it's like eating a persimmon.
Oh,
You
yeah.
don't-
When that's not
Okay,
right.
there you go. One bite of that,
Yeah, you are puckered.
yeah, you're gonna wish you didn't bite into
That's
that. For a
right.
while. And it doesn't go away.
No.
I don't know why. You can hit mouth with milk and water and everything. It just
Yeah.
it's bitter.
Yes, it is.
It's
Yes, it is.
bitter. Anyway, but these are all great things that people can learn in 4-H. And like I said, if you have a skill that maybe you would think that I think these kids might want to be interested in what I do. And don't think whatever you are doing is nobody cares.
Right.
Because you'd be surprised how many people probably would admire what you do if given a chance.
Right.
But they
And
don't know.
even leadership. I mean, that's something that we need to pass down to the kids too. And speaking and, conducting a business meeting and what you need to say, just little things like that we don't think about,
Right.
that we need to help the kids with. I know my ag kids at the high school level, middle school kids they're more gung-ho on doing stuff. High school kids will be the first to tell you, I'm not getting up in front of that class and
Yeah.
in front of my peers and talking. Well, that's the last thing that Miss Glenn needed to hear, because at that point, somebody was getting up in front of that class
right. Now
every
you're
day.
going. Yeah.
And, the more you do it, the more comfortable you get with it. And I wasn't trying to be mean to them. They might start off with their back to the class, but just getting them up there on a regular, they know they're going to have to do this on this day, and they just get more comfortable with it. And before you know it, they can have a conversation with a fence post. And,
And really a lot of that fear is anticipation.
right.
They just don't know how anybody's going to react, and they don't know what it's like to look into numerous people's eyes at one
Right.
time.
That's
And
right.
that kind of scares them.
That's
So,
right.
but there's really nothing to be scared of, because
No.
when they have to get back up and do it, you can just say, "I'm going to just stare you down."
That's right.
So, and it's an educational thing, but it teaches you very easily. First
Yep.
off, makes you have to focus on what you're saying. to
And it
know.
makes you realize the more you know about the topic you're speaking about, the easier it is.
Oh, yeah.
You don't have to keep looking at notes or anything like that. You can just talk about it and go.
Yeah,
So.
Even and when you get to college, you're going to do the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Many presentations. If you want to do a master's, guess what? You got to do an oral presentation.
Right.
You better be good at it.
That's right. That's right.
But I remember in college, and it was in a management class, and we had really 3 projects for your entire grade.
Mm-hmm.
One was a case. You had to work on a case, and you had to do it with classmates. So, because I was in accounting and they were in finance, the other one was in management, so everybody in their specialty was supposed to take part in this case.
Which is a
And
challenge in itself when you're working with
you're
other
trying to
people.
get other people to do their part.
Right.
And then you're supposed to make a decision whether this business to stay in business, go out of business, change course, whatever your decision. But then you've got to back that up with the facts. So not only are you analyzing the company for what they have done,
Mm-hmm.
now you got to figure out, do they go on, do they close, or do we change focus?
Right. And that's something right there, like the record books that these kids have to keep for their projects.
Right.
That is a perfect example. And I know record books are awful. I know. I mean, you can hear parents at the expo.
Just grown.
Oh my gosh, that last week getting the kids to finish their record books. But these kids, some of these kids have the opportunities to take over the family business, the family farm. And if they're not keeping good records and know how to take that data and manipulate it and understand it,
Right.
is this just an expensive hobby? Can I make a living doing this? If I tweak this, if I change this, is it going to make it better? And understanding the numbers and the information.
And also looking at the future with technology and how that's going to change.
Right. Right.
You know, but I just remember this class because we all met, all of our classmates got together. We met at the library. There was 5 of us. The next time we met, there were 3. The next time we met, there were 2. It was me and this other girl. And I said, well, we're just going to have to make the presentation. Well, I pretty well, knowing that these other people weren't going to do much, I could kind of tell from the first meeting. You could kind of see these people like, well, that's not really my cup of tea. I said, well, you know what? This is at least a third of your grade. Now, if you get an F on this, you can't pass. And this is a senior management class. You have to have it to get your degree. I would think I'd pay attention. Nope, they didn't do it. And so we had to make our oral presentation. It was kind of funny. All 5 of us are up there. And every question that the instructor asked or the class asked, I answered. So, because I'm the only one that knew it.
Yeah.
The answer. This other girl did about 10% of the work, but I ended up doing about 90%. And I just remember that the instructor asked the question, I started to answer. He says, no, I don't want you to answer it. And he points his finger, I want you to answer it. And he says, and you better have a good answer.
And they had nothing.
They had nothing. And so he goes, you got Fs. He goes, you can get no better than a D in my class right now. He goes, now you got to still submit a report. And he goes, so my suggestion to you 3 would be to drop this class now. He goes, even though it's second semester, your senior year, you're not going to pass. He goes, and I don't negotiate.
Yeah.
He goes,
and then they're like, what can we do? What can we do?
Yeah. He goes, you
late.
did it. You did this. I didn't do it.
Right.
He said, you guys have a good presentation here, but he goes, one person's doing the whole presentation. But one person's the one that did all the research and did everything. He goes, I know you guys met because I was in the library when you met. I saw you all there.
That one time.
One time. But they never followed through. And then when you don't have that information.
Right.
And back then, it wasn't like going to the internet. You had to go to the library and research things. You had to dig things up.
Out of that card catalog.
Yeah. A lot of you find out that there's a lot of information out there that people, you would never think you'd ever need.
Right.
There's a Bureau of Labor Statistics that can give you all kinds of stuff on labor. And again, every single state has it. You don't even know what it's out there, but you can get that not only for states, you can get it for cities, you can get it for counties. You can get retail sales tax reports going back years and years, but you got to know where to go get it.
Right.
So you got to ask a lot of questions when you're in college. Nowadays, you go on the internet and you just have to type it in and you can find something, but you don't know if it's accurate.
Right. That's right.
Because there's so much misinformation. So anyway, but it's a good tool to learn how to speak in front of groups, know how to communicate.
That's right.
And as you mentioned, know your stuff when you're up there. Very good.
It makes it easier.
Very good. What else are we going to talk about?
We did have summer camp this year, so I wanted to mention that. That was prior to Expo, and we're already making plans for next year's summer camp. And those kids have a blast. We have some of our older kids that are counselors, so they'll take the younger kids and kind of make sure they get to all their stations and help them with their whatever project they're working on. So that will be coming up in June of next year. Used to, and this was before my time, but they used to, different counties were assigned a week that they went. But since COVID and the numbers have dropped, and we're trying to get those numbers back, and each year they increase more and more and more. But since I started here, they would just tell the kids, just pick which week you want to go. It didn't matter which county you were from, and we're going to do that again this coming summer. And then it may get back to, in the next year or so, it may get back to, like
Designated
Dent
weeks.
County would be this, which I kind of like that because I can't go each week, but whenever I go, there might be one or two kids there, and then 3 or 4 the next week.
Sure.
So I kind of like the idea of being there when our kids are there, because that gives
Absolutely.
me an opportunity to get to know them even
Absolutely.
more. So we'll just see what the future holds for that. But next year it is going to be just pick a week that you want to go.
Okay.
We talked about the enrollment coming up October 1st. Beef Day,
Coming up soon.
September 14th, just right around the corner, and that is for 4th graders. I think it used to be 3rd grade, but when they missed a year for COVID, they didn't want those kids to miss out
So now
that
it's
didn't
4th
get
grade.
to go, so they switched it to 4th grade, and we've just kept it 4th grade.
It's
So-
a very interesting day.
Yes, yes, it is. They cover all kinds of stuff from safety on the farm. The Salem FFA is out there, and those kids are given all kind. I think there's like 17 stations, 15 or 17 stations that the kids rotate through, and just get a little bit of information about a whole lot of stuff. So letters have been sent out to the schools, so hopefully we'll have a good turnout again for that. And that's on
Usually
September
it's
14th.
a real good turnout.
Yes.
I can't see it not being one.
Yes.
Yeah. It's a great education for youngsters who don't live on the farm.
Right, right. And then the other thing that I wanted to mention is our social media. We do have a Facebook page for our the 4-H clubs here. I think all of our clubs except for Green Forest have a Facebook page, so you can just type in the name of the club. But I started a Dent County, Missouri 4-H, where whenever we get notifications from the state about a contest or a conference or something like that, I'll put it on that page for all of our 4-H members to see. And then when I see that the clubs are doing something, I'll share that on our page as well. So that Facebook page is Dent County, MO 4-H, Dent County, Missouri 4-H. And then we also have a page specific for our expo, because not all of our 4-H members do anything participate
Right.
at the expo, so we started a separate page for that. We do have our dates for next year's expo. I didn't bring those with me. I'm waiting to get the weigh-in dates cleared. So we're finalizing those dates, and as soon as we get those will be emailed out to our club leaders, and then we'll also put that on our Facebook page. But Expo just wrapped up, got all of our reports done, and we're already working on next year's Expo. So
It never wraps up.
Never
It's
stops.
continual.
Yep,
it's
that's
continual.
right.
And
Just goes from-
but the meeting after the fact, good,
Right.
bad, indifferent, what needs to be.
Yeah, we had about a
re-examined.
2.5, 3-hour meeting. And, things that were brought to our attention during Expo, that we discuss it, we make decisions, how are we going to do it next year. And I don't think there was anything really bad, but just little things that we need to address. Not everything is in the rule book until we have an issue, and then we have to change the rule book a little bit, tweak it a little bit. So
Man, we talk about that. There's changes all the time.
Right.
Changes in technology, changes, and we'll be able to have somebody. Maybe got a different time for judging, or maybe at the one time we've had ultrasonic, we used to get all the carcass shows done. Well, maybe that can't be done. There's just
right.
there's
And that
a lot
was one of our
demand.
issues last year.
It was.
The gentleman that we usually use for the ultrasounds was not able to make it, so we had to find somebody else and work around their schedule. And I know there were issues with that, but that's just something we had to deal with at the moment. So, each year there's going to be something.
Right.
And this year with the ultrasounds, and we also switched over to a program, Fair Entry. which there wasn't a whole lot of change that anybody out in the public would have seen. But as far as the administration of the expo, it was amazing. We still have some things that we have to tweak a little bit to make next year run even smoother. But, you know, some things nobody even notices unless you're on the other side of the fence making things happen. So it was much smoother for us this year with fair entry, and it's just going to get better from here.
Yeah, well, if you're going to start anything that first time, it's always the roughest.
Right.
Because you really don't know what to expect.
Right. And you don't know, you know, with fair entry, we had to go in and put all the information in and make sure we had everything that we needed toggled or not toggled and all that kind. And sometimes we didn't know we had it wrong until we needed it, and then we had to step back and fix it and try it again and.
Well, it's like any computer program you do. If you buy an accounting piece, you've got to put in all your data first before it'll ever run.
Right.
And, you know, you got to put in your assets, your expenses, and then you got to start adding the actual information. Well, here you're trying to list all of your buyers.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And then you got to get all the kids in there with all their animals, and that's a lot of entry.
Yeah.
That's putting.
And there, you know, we did request that our buyers contact us prior to the auction so that we could get their information put in the system. And a majority of them did, and a majority of them came up the day of the sale, prior to the sale. And then we had a few that we didn't have in the system. And, you know, fortunately, we were still doing old school paper pencil, but we had the program going as well. And you know, it was the ones that we didn't have in the system that we had to put in before we could put the actual sale information in.
Right.
So little things like that. We'll probably still do the paper pencil next year, and you know, until everybody gets used to the new program, and then but the buyers that we have in there now will be transferred to next year.
Sure.
So it'll get better.
But you know as well as I do, you always have new buyers.
Absolutely.
You're always going to have a few new ones, and they may not know that they have to register. And so you're going
So
to
it's
have
just
that.
getting the word out there.
Overall, outstanding expo again this year, and again, a great exhibits.
What's our new word? I've already forgotten.
Exhibo? What
Something
is it? Something. Anyway, but we hope that next year will be even better.
We want to fill that building up. It's just great seeing all the projects that the kids are doing.
Well, Amy, as always, thanks for coming in, updating us on our 4-H kids and 4-H leaders and our 4-H clubs and the different things with 4-H, but also on the expo, keeping people a little bit more informed. And if anybody has any questions about the extension or 4-H, they call you at the office, 729-3196.
Correct.
Very good. Really appreciate you coming in, spending some time with us. We have our friends from the extension come in. It's usually the fourth Wednesday of every month. A little bit of a
mix-up last week, yes.
Yeah, it does happen. But anyway, we're glad to be able to get Amy in this week and talk a little bit about the expo and get you ready for 4-H. Because like I said, come Friday is the 1st of September. It's hard to believe that October will be that close.
Yes, it's here.
It really will be. Thanks again for coming in.
Thank
Amy
you
Glenn
so much.
from our Dane County Extension, and 729-3196. They are on the second floor of the Judicial Building down there on 5th Street. You can head on down that way and climb those steps, those Mary steps. But
all 18 of them.
Yeah. And if you can't do that, just when
call
you get there,
and we
call
will
up
meet
there.
you
They'll meet you
downstairs.
downstairs.
Yes.
Yeah, they do a very good job. Thank you very much. Again,
Thank you.
Thank you very, very much. Stick around. We've got AP News and then statewide news and our spotlight on SMH coming up in just a moment.
No one plays more music. KSMO